All right. Hey, everybody. For those of you watching on the replay or watching live, I just wanted to make a cool video about this question that you should be able to see in the title. That it was something Mitch posted on Facebook as a question, and he wrote, "Do you put the pursuit of happiness above the goal of changing this world to be best for all?" And man, it's such a great question. And I was looking at the comments that people put in his post, and it's just so much in there. So I wanted to make a video and give my perspective on it. The first thing I want to suggest is that you don't have to assume that not putting your pursuit of happiness first means you have to be unhappy or that you have to feel bad all the time. So that's the first thing, and it doesn't mean you have to accept not feeling good, meaning you have to accept feeling bad all the time as a primary point, or that you have to then always feel bad or something. That's not at all what that question implies. But I wanted to go through some of these responses that people put and give my perspective on it, because it's one thing when you try to type out a response and you go back and forth and all this stuff, and that's cool too sometimes, but I really wanted to give my clear perspective. So again, do you put the pursuit of happiness above the goal of changing this world to be best for all? And so someone put, let's see here. Someone said, yes, the happiest version of me will create a better world. Okay. And further down in the comments, as a reply to their original comment, they wrote, I'm not out to change the world, but by becoming a better version of me, I believe the world will become a better place. And there's more to it than that, but nothing that really changes that context of what they're saying there. And so I just wanted to give my comment on that point, because you can't always know exactly what everybody is trying to say, the details of it on a Facebook comment, but I'm just going to give my perspective on that general attitude. Because people will say, okay, so when you look at the question, am I putting my pursuit of happiness above the goal of changing the world to be best for all? And one more thing. I want to read one more comment up for context. Someone said, I don't see this as separate items. Helping people and changing the world for the better should be tied in with a personal pursuit of happiness. That's just my opinion. Okay, so I want to add that one too. So it's, first of all, and this isn't commenting on any of these people individually, because it's not about it being personal or anything, but generally speaking, that the starting point of where that comment is coming from, or an argument like that, is I'm actually just only focused on my pursuit of happiness. And I'm justifying that by saying I'm also trying to change the world, or I'm doing things that help people, and therefore, and that makes me feel good, and and it's helping, but really I'm actually just focused on trying to feel good for myself. Now, I'm not judging anyone who's in that position. We are all coming from that starting point to a certain degree. And however, it's by removing that point within us that's going to allow us to really step up and make a difference in this world. Again, that doesn't mean you have to be unhappy. If you're unhappy, that's actually the pursuit of happiness as well. Let me explain why. Because unhappiness is still participating in your feelings and emotions, and accepting them as who you are and what your world is all about. So imagine, like, you were feeling really sad. Should that justify why you don't cook dinner for your kids? It shouldn't. If you feel really happy, should that justify why you don't cook dinner for your kids? In other words, should your actions be based on how you're feeling, or should it be based on what would be the best thing to do? So that's the first point to separate. But the point of helping people and changing the world should be tied together. Which is it? Is it that you're helping people and you're changing the world, or is it that you're pursuing personal happiness? And if you're solely focused on helping people and changing the world, why wouldn't you be happy within that completely? And maybe that's what this person's trying to say. But look at the potential of yourself or anyone to make the argument that, well, I'm focused on being happy and doing things that make me happy, and along the way I kind of help people here and there. And therefore, what I'm doing is okay because of that. And then also look at the point of when I'm happy, then I will be doing things in a way that's best for everybody. Versus what I'm saying, which is when you're doing what's best, then you'll be happy. Or maybe you won't. Does it really matter? Does it really matter if you're doing what's best, whether you're happy from it or not? And that's the real point. Like, why do you always need to be happy? And then also, and this might be difficult for many because it really takes the ability to see a bigger context, is everything that we do in our lives to feel happy is always in some way requiring interaction with reality itself physically, in some physical way. And if you had, in the current system that we live in, generally speaking, if you have no money whatsoever and you don't in some way participate in something that requires money, meaning you could say like, well, I don't ever worry about money. I'm just happy and people just give me food. Well, but they had to work for that money, or if it's a charity, somebody had to give money to the charity. So you're still, it's really just like, I'm not the one going and doing the work to get the money, and therefore I don't use money. It's like, no, that's not true. Money is why that food exists. Meaning the food was produced by a farmer so they could pay money, so they could receive money for it and feed their family, for example. So somebody had to do it. So that's just to handle the point of anyone saying, well, I don't need money to be happy. It's like, okay, but anything that you do to feel good about or to be happy within, you still have to interact in this world and use money. Of course, there's always the side of things where somebody says, well, I don't need to do something or do anything to feel happy. Like I can just be happy. Okay, let's say that's true. If that's the case, then there shouldn't be anything you would need to do to be happy, which is what the argument would be. Therefore, you should then would only be focused on what's absolutely the best thing to do. So, and it wouldn't be based on how that thing makes you feel. So then you have to really be self-honest with yourself. Are the things that I'm doing, am I doing them because of how I think they'll make me feel? Like, do I watch this TV show because it's going to make me feel good? Or do I hang out with this person because it makes me feel good? Or do I take this drug or eat this food or do this sport or watch this show or whatever it is because I feel good from it? That's not giving. That's just taking. And what you're actually doing is manipulating your body because of whatever it is, the activity you're doing, it represents something in a symbolic way that you've associated within yourself feeling good. And so when you're in the presence of that symbol, whether it's like a TV show that you're watching or an actual activity you're doing or a person or whatever it is, it's associated with certain patterns of like symbols, I mean, it means something to you. And then your body creates chemical responses based on that. Now, I'm not going to go into where does that feeling come from, because actually something that's abused, you're abusing your body to get. But that aside for a moment, I want to go into the point of when someone says, what was it? The happiest version of me will create a better world. And there's so much in that statement. What does it take to get happy? And then when you're happy, then you'll create a better world. Well, first of all, what does it take to be happy so that then you could create the better world? In other words, because and you might say there's no dichotomy there. But if a person says, he says, I'm putting pursuit of happiness over the goal of creating a better world, because when I'm happy, I'll create a better world. Do you see that? That's actually an extremely selfish and self-interested starting point. And somebody might say, oh, that's okay. But really look at it. You're saying, I want to be happy. So until I'm happy, I'm not going to focus on making the world better. But it's like this weird sort of logic of, but it's justified because when I'm happy, I'll create a better world. Well, then you have to look at why you're not happy then. And why are you doing things to try to become happy? Because it's the word pursuit of happiness. If you read the post that Mitch wrote, it says, do you put the pursuit of happiness above the goal of changing this world to be best for all? So I'm going to pursue happiness, which means I'm not intrinsically inherently happy within myself. I have to pursue it. I have to go get it. I have to go become happy and make myself happy. And if you really knew how to just be happy, you wouldn't have to pursue it. You would just be happy all the time. But then if that were the case, according to the logic, you wouldn't have to do anything to get happy. So you could really look and evaluate, okay, so what should I do? What will be best for me to do? But then we have to look at, what does it mean to create a better world? If you can actually intrinsically just be happy, and then that would lead to the creation of a better world, why would there be any reason to create a better world? Wouldn't that imply that there is no such thing as a better world? It's just about you creating happiness within yourself. And that's actually what some people argue. Somebody said here, if each person knew unconditional love for themselves, they would feel happiness. Self-hatred can only yield conditional love. And this is, I can change neither you nor the rest of humanity, though each one has the ability to create that for themselves. So be happy, focus on you, discover what's blocking you from loving without condition, loving yourself without condition. What beliefs do you hold that would allow you to hold on to self-hatred? When each of us loves ourselves unconditionally, the experience the entire world has will shift. It's kind of tautological, because what they're saying is, if you just loved yourself, then nothing would be bad in your life. And if everybody just loved themselves, then nothing would be bad. Everyone would experience themselves differently. But it's not self-honest. And the problem is, no one, generally speaking, is willing to look deeply enough at the point, and they're not willing to push themselves and just accept the fact that there's nothing you can do to be happy. And that doesn't mean I'm saying, oh, so there's something I can do, so I could just be happy, and then I don't have to do anything, and it's really just about being happy and loving myself, and then I'll be happy. No, I'm saying there's nothing you can do to be happy perpetually. It's not a thing. Because right now, currently in this world, you exist in the context of a system that by design does not give everyone what they need, what they require to be here physically. You cannot be happy if you don't have enough food to eat. I mean, it's like, imagine you don't water a tree. You just never water it, and it just withers. You only give it like a little bit, just enough, but not enough for it to really flourish. Would you say that tree could be truly happy? Or is happiness just some mental delusion that you participate in? It's nothing to do with physical reality. Like, can you see how that's just placing this feeling that you have over the mechanics of physical reality? And you look at how far someone has to have gone in mental delusion to literally be here in a physical reality where you have to eat, you have to poop, you have to clean yourself, you have to do all kinds of things to maintain your physical existence in this reality. And everyone has to do that. And for you to even be listening to this audio or this video, you have to have a computer based with, that was created because someone was trying to make money, and they were trying to feed themselves and feed their family and have all kinds of physical things in their life. And you have to, it follows physical rules, physical laws of like electricity. If you don't plug your computer in, it's not going to turn on. So you have to plug it into electricity, and someone has to make sure that electricity gets there. And you have to be able to pay for the computer or get the computer somehow. Somebody has to create it and find a way for you to have it. And then you have to have a place to sit in that's not, because like it's storming outside, a little bit outside. I can't be sitting outside in the rain doing this. I have to have a roof over my head. I have to have clothing that, protects my body from the weather and so forth. There's so much that you have to consider from a physical perspective, but that you don't have to consider in a conscious way, because it's all automated. Because we have a system in this world that makes it happen. And as long as you have money and you know what to do with it, meaning I have to go buy food and get it, or somebody has to give you food. It's got to be worked out in some way that you're not always having to think about it. Imagine if I just dropped you off in the woods, like in the middle of nowhere, and it's just like a desert, okay, not even the woods, a desert, and you haven't had any clothes, you don't have any water, you don't have any food, and I just drop you off there and I go, now just be happy. Are you going to go, well, like, are you going to go, okay, well, look, I will focus on my survival when I'm happy. So I'm sitting in this desert and I'm like, okay, what will be best for me right now? I need to get some water, man, because if I don't get water within a couple hours in this desert, I'm going to die. You're like, well, that would be creating a better world for me. So I'm not going to focus on that. I'm just going to be happy right now. I'm going to focus on being happy. And then that will, so when I'm happy, then I'll start. So then what would you do? Okay, I'm happy now. Man, I feel so amazing. Okay, I feel so great. I'm going to go get some water for myself. Like, is that how it would work? Or would you be like, dude, I don't feel good right now. This fucking sucks. I'm going to die. Like, I need to go get some water. And you would start looking for water. Now, if you were just totally panicking and freaking out and like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And like you didn't move, of course, if you're in a state of just total fear, you're not going to move yourself to go get the water. It would be better if you just are clear and you're like, it doesn't matter how you feel in that context. You just have to know, if I don't get water, my body will die. And then guess what? Are you going to feel happy after that? Like, you're not even going to be here anymore. You're just not going to exist anymore in this reality. So if you totally ignore the laws of physical reality, how can you be happy? And so to say, well, when I'm happy, then I will create a better world. What I'm suggesting is maybe it's the reverse. I mean, it's not maybe. I'm saying that for you as your mind to be like, consider it for a moment. But that is the case. If we have a better world, guess what? You would never even think about happiness. Because if the world was best for everybody, we would all be happy by default because there would be no lack. Like, wouldn't you agree, if you never had to think about money, if you never had to think about where money would come from, or no one ever in this world ever had to die as a result of not having enough money, like everyone had enough food, the best nutrition, everyone had the best clothing, the best shelter, the best computer, communication technology, the best everything, why would there be unhappiness? And you might say, well, if everything was perfect, how could we be happy? You have to have some kind of challenge to be happy. Well, hold on. You're saying that happiness comes first, then doing things come next. So you can't use that argument in the same conversation. If someone just has that as their only argument, you can handle that argument. What I'm saying is, you can't say, well, if the world was perfect, we would just be bored. Well, no, because you're saying that your happiness is something you pursue and then you do things. You pursue happiness first, you get happy, and then from that, you can do things in this world. So my suggestion would be, no, if everything was perfect, I mean, your happiness comes first, right? You can't even make the world better until you're happy, is what you're claiming. So you can't say, well, if everything was perfect, I still wouldn't be happy, because there has to, but which comes first, happiness or external circumstances and things? Clearly, you recognize that circumstances will in some way affect whether you're happy or not. Now, the problem is also embedded within that is like this subconscious program. It's actually a self-sabotage of things can't be perfect. Things can't be best for everybody, because there has to be some struggle. There has to be some conflict. There has to be some competition or something that's lacking for me to overcome it. But then you have to really start asking yourself, like, oh, fuck, man, is my whole idea of existing and sense of purpose just based on the fact, like, actually not real? Meaning, am I just programmed that in order to be here, I have to struggle somehow, or there has to be problems? You know, I mean, that's what people claim. They're like, well, things can't be perfect because, there would always be something. We have to have some kind of conflict. And it's like, but isn't everything that you do in the context of being happy or pursuing happiness in some way solving your problems? And if struggle was necessary or conflict was necessary for you to overcome it to be happy, it's like, then why do you overcome it? Like, it doesn't make, isn't it not having the problem anymore, where you're like, okay, great. Now you could argue that, well, but it's in pursuing the next thing and the next thing. But that would imply that your happiness is derived from the process of overcoming the problem. And so if that were true, you can never say, when I'm happy, then I'll create a better world. Because wouldn't that imply, even if you accept this point, that your happiness would be in solving the problem? Because the other question I would have to ask is, what does it mean to create a better world in the context of someone saying, well, I have to be the happiest I can be, and then that will create a better world. Well, what would that version of you do when you're happy? Like when you've got to that point of being happy, and then, so in other words, every the happier I am, the more I do in this world that's best. But how do you actually become happy? And then when you are happy, what do you do based on it? Why is the happy you doing something that's better and the unhappy you doing something that's not best? And how do you get to be the happy you that then does the best things? Because that would imply only when you're the happy you are you doing the best things. Is it that you're saying, I mean, to be clear what I'm saying, like, which one is the prior point? Which one happens first? I am happy and then I do what's best, or I do what's best and then I'm happy? Or in other words, as I'm doing what's best, I'm happy within that. Okay. But that wouldn't be placing the pursuit of happiness over doing what's best. That would be enjoying the process of doing what's best. That would actually be placing doing what's best as the primary point. If the argument is that it comes as a natural derivative of doing what's best, I don't think that's the argument, because what I'm seeing is, and I know because I'm honest with myself, I can see how I process things, what arguments I make, what limitations I have within myself. I can see these things. It's arguing that I should not have to change anything about what I believe is going to make me happy in order to do what's best. I don't need to change me. And yet at the same time, people believe, they hold on to that belief, and they think, I focus on me. I focus on changing me because I can't change the world. I change me. And when I change me, everything will change. When I'm happy, everybody will be happy. When they change themselves to be happy, everybody will be happy. That's how it will work. But you're also saying, just not everyone's going to agree. Like, not everyone's going to hear what I'm saying and be like, yeah, that makes sense. Some people are going to be like, oh, no, you don't understand because of this and this. So, okay, I can't convince you, fine. But if you're able to hear me, just consider what you're saying really is, I don't need to change what I value in this world. Like, I have these goals and dreams. And when I get those, that to me is happiness. And as I'm doing that, as long as I'm pursuing those things that I feel are going to make me happy, then I will be a good person. I will be doing what's best. But you're in a system that the only way to get those things is through participating in the system itself. And if that system is making it possible for you to do that, but also creating circumstances and environments where other people go without, then are you not like basically sacrificing them so that you can use the system to get what you believe is going to make you happy? And, I would challenge anyone to really look for yourself, like, this belief that you can just be happy within yourself. And at the same time, there's no obligation on your part to do anything to change the system that we live in. I'm not claiming that it's impossible to be happy within yourself. From a existential perspective. But to think that I can just be happy and love myself, and when I love myself, I am happy, then if I just show someone else to do that, they'll do that, and they'll do that, and they'll do that. Why doesn't everyone love themselves in the first place? Like, why wouldn't you love yourself? Really look at it for yourself. Why wouldn't you already automatically naturally love yourself? And this is going back to the point I was kind of saying earlier, which is, if the world were best for all, like, let's say you didn't lack anything, you didn't need anything because you have all the things that you physically need and the best of all of it, and everyone did. Why wouldn't you love that? Why wouldn't you love that existence? Why wouldn't it be like, dude, this, it's like if you go to a restaurant and it's just like the food is amazing and everyone's so nice to you, and you're like, wow, the music is good, and you're it's like such an amazing environment. You're like, this, I love this restaurant. But it's just, you go to a different restaurant and it's like the lights are like flat, like blinking, and it's like only one light over here in the corner. And the guy's like, what do you want? And you're like, they just throw some slop on the table, and it's like the table's wobbly, and it's like this cold soup that's like got hair in it. And you're like, I do not like this place. Okay. Like, this is not a good place. Why wouldn't you naturally love the place that's like amazing and not love the place that's not amazing? And is it that you believe, oh, we just don't know how amazing we are, and we're just not realizing that, and we're fooled and we're tricked? Well, how is that possible? Isn't it only that, is it obvious to you that there's something in our environment that is misleading us, making us think something's wrong? So is it just, you think it's just a mental issue? Like, oh, no, like literally you're in this amazing restaurant, but over here you think it's a piece of shit. But imagine growing up in an environment where your father sexually abuses you, or literally your mom comes home and just doesn't even talk to you, just turns on the TV, warms up some instant macaroni and cheese in the microwave, gives you that for dinner, and yells at you to do your homework, and then just leaves. And then like there's like guys coming in because she's a prostitute, and your older brother just comes in and punches you because he's high on some drugs or something, and he's drinking. And like your life is total shit, and you live in like a small 1-bedroom apartment with like 3 other people in the same room as you. Like, you're gonna love that? You say, well, no, that person just needs to love themselves. It's like, but what is yourself other than you in the context of the reality you're in? Now, I'm not saying, is there anything, there is a directive principle, which is you, but in itself, the purpose of that directive principle is to direct your environment to be best for you. Not, oh, well, I'm here, so I should just love it. I mean, whatever it is, if someone's literally taking a shit on my head and forcing me to eat it, I should just love that, because I should just love myself, and I just radiate that love. It doesn't matter what my circumstance is. Like, do you really think that's practically possible? And what's interesting is you'll have people who will argue, well, I've been in that situation, and I just loved myself and everything, and now my life is so great. Yeah, you didn't stay in that situation, did you? It's like the Eckhart Tolle, idea of the power of now. It's like he was like homeless on a bench and then realized it's just about being in the now and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, well, you're not there now, are you? You're making millions and you're doing speaking tours and you're a celebrity. Why don't you just stay on the bench? If you figured it out, it's like, oh, but because I was happy, I was able to go do all these things. And by helping other people realize it, I became happier. It's like, well, no, I thought that you got happy and then that's what allowed you to do all those things. Well, okay. I mean, I figured out the happiness. So I want to help other people. And now I'm doing what's best. How come everyone else isn't figuring it out? Is it because that's just a story that's being told? Is it that perhaps this guy realized a way of talking that other people are really attracted to? And they're like, wow, that's so cool, that message you have. Yeah, being in the now. And like, they're so unhappy that they're just searching for something to make them happy. And this guy says, look, it's not about any of your circumstances. It's not about any of the stuff going on in your life. It's not the fact that you can't communicate with your kids or your spouse or anything. It's just, you're not in the now. You're not happy now. You got to be in now. And it's like, yeah, I like that. So you give this guy money, and now he's a millionaire, and he lives the life that you wish you could have. He's the rock star and traveling the world, doing all these amazing things. Imagine this guy going to a country where they barely make any money. And here's the family where the mother's got 8 kids and she's barely struggling to feed them. And, the kids are like, have flies swarming around them and stuff like that. And he's like, you just need to be in the now. Wouldn't it make more sense if we had a system that no matter where you're born, you have enough of what you need? Because even if the answer is be in the now, how is that possible when you're focused on just trying to survive? If literally, and think about it, if you don't get proper nutrition when you're young, your brain doesn't develop fully. So you're always coming from like a mentally disabled perspective because your brain didn't develop proper functioning. And now you just tell that person just to be happy. And that's the secret, when you could have prevented that. As human beings, our priorities are totally out of order. And it's so interesting because we want to blame the elite. We want to blame the 1%. Yeah, the 1% of the 1%, they're all fucked. They're the problem. All they're doing is maintaining the system. Everybody in this world is still, not even the 1%, everybody else is still trying to pursue happiness. We are the ones in our pursuit of happiness, which is making the system function so that the elite have something to manage. If we weren't pursuing happiness, what would we do instead? We would say, okay, look, I just realized what happiness is. Happiness is not caring about being happy. Happiness is always doing what's best, no matter how I feel. So now, wouldn't it make sense for me to make my purpose in life based on what will be best rather than what I think will make me happy? And what I notice is that the people who make the biggest claims about happiness is the most important thing and I can create happiness within myself, they're the least happy people. Now, they won't admit it, and they even become very good at putting on a show of like how happy they are and how amazing their life is and everything. But what you'll notice is everything they have in their life is from just telling other people how to be happy. So that's like their evidence. Like their evidence is, see, I spread this message and then my life becomes better. But it doesn't make life better for the other person. It makes it better for you, not the other person. Because if everyone realized it, that the secret was happiness, what would we do? Like, what would you do? You wouldn't be able to make money from telling everybody to be happy anymore. Like Eckhart Tolle would literally not have anything to do because everyone knows it, right? So what would you do? And if everybody realized the secret was just happiness, then what would you expect would happen? Like, how would food get on the table? Why would the farmer plant food? Because you're saying, oh, well, they're just happy, so they'd continue doing it. Well, they were doing it already. So what does it matter if they're happy then? Like literally, if you're saying everybody would just do the same thing, well, you're saying, okay, now everybody would just love each other. So there wouldn't be any more wars. There wouldn't be any more conflict. Okay, but how would that put food on the table of somebody who lives in an area where food doesn't just grow naturally in abundance? Like it has to be cultivated. How would the food get on their table? There'd have to be somewhere for them to go to get food. So you think people would just be like, I'm just in such a loving state. I'm just going to go and be a farmer and just give food away because I love everybody. It's like, well, maybe hypothetically that would happen. But isn't the assumption that if everyone was in a state of happiness, they would do the things physically that would make sure everybody gets fed? Because like, okay, would you agree if everyone was in a state of happiness and no one did any work to make food on the tables, or no one even invented any systems to make sure it comes to us? Like, I'm not saying you have to literally, everybody has to go out in the fields and plow the fields, but like we should build systems that would make sure food gets produced and comes to everybody as the best nutrition and everything. Wouldn't you assume if everyone was in this loving state, we would all just do that stuff automatically? That's maybe what you're thinking, right? But then wouldn't that imply that the point is for everybody, like, in other words, how long would the state of happiness last if no one actually did that? Like if everyone was just totally happy and then no one actually created that stuff. Because like imagine everyone's really happy, right? And you go up to somebody, you're like, man, we should really, everyone's gonna like need to eat pretty soon. And they're like, well, maybe somebody will do it because we're all happy. And I mean, I'm happy just to sit here. Like, yeah, but we're gonna starve soon. Like, yeah, I know, but I'm happy. Like, what does it matter? Like, I'm happy right now. I'm happy where I'm at. I'm just loving myself and I'm feeling so good. And it's just unconditional love of myself. And I don't need to do anything. Are you expecting that everyone else is going to be like, oh, that's cool, man. You just sit there. Like, I'm going to go plow the fields now and make some food for us tonight. Is that what you're expecting? Or are you just thinking because you're feeling so happy, everyone's just going to automatically know what to do? Like, we're all just going to know I need to go work on this thing and make sure that everyone has this, and that person just is going to know they need to go work on this. It's literally a way of absolving yourself completely of any self-responsibility. Like, as soon as I'm feeling great, it's just going to take me over and control me like a robot and make me do what's best. It's like, even if you become the happiest fucking person on earth internally, that doesn't mean you know how to do anything. That doesn't mean you're going to know how to do something. And what you'll notice is, while you're busy pursuing happiness, this whole time, you're mostly actually focused most of your time on trying to put food on the table, trying to make sure you have the next thing, or like you, and then entertaining yourself, because the stuff you have to do to get the money to put the food on the table and so forth is so fucking mind numbing and dull and just like soul draining, that you have to go entertain yourself and distract yourself from the pain you're experiencing on a regular basis. So it becomes this feeling bad because you have, well, but while I'm pursuing my happiness, I have to do certain things because it's the way it is. It's like, but imagine if we focused on, instead of trying to do the distraction stuff and the pursuing happiness, or just trying to survive, we focused on how can we be in this system, making money, but in a way that's actually creating a result that's best for everybody. What would be the best thing right now is if everybody could process what I'm saying, meaning everybody realized, okay, the most important thing right now for at least a few to be focused on is making sure everyone has what they need. Like, imagine if everybody who currently is involved in food production, imagine every single person who's in any way involved in food production suddenly woke up at the same time on the same day and said, this doesn't make me happy. I just realized I am not happy doing this. I want to go be a musician. I want to go be an artist. I want to go do something that's fun, that I feel happy about. And they just all stopped. Tell me, what person is going to stand up and go, well, you know what, guys, I love just producing food. And even if there was no money in it, I just love being a farmer. Nothing to do with money. And we're just going to go, and then what, they're going to feed everybody? How many people would have to be replaced in order to make sure everyone gets fed? And so there's so much that while you're pursuing your happiness in a first world country, most likely, where it's like this mental thing, you're just focused on how you feel all the time. And I know I go through it too. I go through periods where I'm feeling good about something, and I'm like, wait a second. It's okay for me to feel good, but this thing I'm doing is a total distraction. This is not adding any value to this world. I'm actually only doing it because it's making me feel good, and I'm wasting my time right now. Over here, oh, this thing happened, I'm feeling so bad and all this stuff, and I'm not effective in what I need to do because I'm over here focused on feeling bad. So it's not about you should never feel good. It's not about you should only feel bad. It's just that those things are actually irrelevant. They're actually irrelevant. The feelings are going to come and they're going to go. And the cool thing is, when you're feeling really negative, if you breathe, eventually it'll stop. Especially if you stop participating in the thoughts and the feelings. You just stop participating. It might take a moment sometimes, but then now you're back, now you're here, and then you do what you need to do. It's a very difficult pill for us to swallow, because in our judgment of the elite, our judgment is actually based on desire to be them. And when I say the elite, I'm referring to like the 1% of the 1%, which is only like not even 800,000 people. The real elite of this world, who have the lives that everybody wished they had. That honestly, if you were to be honest with yourself, you'd be like, if everybody had that life, everything would be great. Like, there'd be no reason. Everybody would be happy. That's why the elite have no desire to change anything, because their lives are amazing. They can do anything they want. But the people who are actually keeping this in place is us, not the really poor people. It's the people who have enough, who are benefiting from the system, but are still desiring to be in that real high position and thinking that it's all about their feelings of happiness. We're holding the system in place. And that doesn't mean we just let go of the system and you just let it collapse. It's about changing it. And so everyone has this point, I say everyone, people sometimes have this point of like, if I change myself, I'll change the world. That's true, but probably not in the way that you realize it. Meaning they're thinking, if I get happy, then the world will become happy. But that's not it. In the same way that when you're depressed, it doesn't make the world depressed. Like, It's what you're doing in the world at the level of the systems that you're accepting and allowing to exist. That's what you have to change. And you change it within yourself by realizing that your pursuit of happiness is a game that you've been sold so that you will just buy shit. And as long as you focusing, now you may say, well, I don't need to buy stuff to feel happy in this relationship over here. Okay, let me take it back for a moment. Buying shit is one form of it. What it really is, it's pursuit of this feeling inside of you. It's like this thing that you're searching for. And for those of you who want to argue, you're just not even at the first point of being self-honest with yourself. Because I have to face this, and I had to face this, and I still have to face it within myself. So if you're arguing, you're just not facing it yet. So this is for those of you who are like, wow, this is the point. I'm not happy because the world is not designed to make me or anyone else happy. It's only designed in a way where a few can be happy from a certain perspective, not even truly happy. Just from the comparison of if you like live in a shitty situation versus you can do anything you want. Everybody wants freedom. Like, look at your dream board. What is your dream board? What's it got on it? I bet you it's got jets and nice cars and maybe a romantic relationship and all this stuff. You're looking for external things to make you happy, because if it was really just that you could just love yourself and be happy, you wouldn't be looking for anything else. But what I know is if you had that within yourself, the next thing you would say is like, okay, people are going without. And their circumstances are in such a way that they're so without that there's no way that person could ever even comprehend just being happy internally, because everything in their environment is creating the conditions that they can't ever do that. And I know there will be those that within your mind, you will argue with what I'm saying, but you're just immature. You just, again, haven't even approached the first level of self-honesty, which is that your environment has shaped who you are. And your environment, as it is, continues to shape who you are, how you feel about your current environment. If I were to come into the room and take away all the things that you have, you would not feel good. If I were to take away all the relationships, if I were to take away your food, your money, your car, everything, you would not be happy. And there's that personality which will say, no, it's just about being happy. And if I can just tell everybody that they should be happy, well, then you should ask yourself why they aren't. Is it not because there's physical conditions in this world that are creating circumstances where people are believing they shouldn't be? So what makes more sense to change? To go and tell them to change their belief, or just change? Like, if it's just about just being naturally happy and that's all that's required, doesn't require to do anything else, then why isn't everyone already happy? Well, because they believe X, Y, and Z, or this people told them otherwise. It's like, yeah, but then why is that happening? Why is the environment not already in a way that just reinforces to us that we should just be happy within ourselves? Can you not see that the environment has an effect on you? So if you change the environment, you would feel differently. And if you're honest with yourself, for those who have already gone down the path of, I'm already happy and I have everything I need, it's like, but that feeling that you have, it was amplified as your environment changed. It's like you started to see a spark of, if I feel a little bit better, then I can go out and do this. And then when you got that, you could feel a little bit better, and you could feel a little bit better, you could feel a little bit better. So I'm not saying there's no common sense within that point of like, if you change your environment, you'll feel better. That is my whole point. But you think, and then if you feel better for a moment, you can change things. So let me be clear. If you are dwelling on being depressed or dwelling on being unhappy, if you're participating in that, you're never going to be able to change anything. But if you're focusing on feeling good, the problem is you'll end up pursuing things that will then create a consequence later for yourself, for other people. And the biggest proof of that is not realizing, like in your pursuit of happiness, not realizing you need to step up and change the system. Because if you have gotten to the point of self-honesty where you realize when I am, if I change my internal state for a moment and then I can do more, what is it that you do within that? Do you just leave everything as it is, or do you end up changing something? You see, you're changing something. And then now your environment has improved a little bit, which you're now at like a new level of feeling okay, but not enough because there's still more things that you want. So then it's like you can feel a little bit better and then get more. And that's how you're kind of going through your life. But there's a limit to that because there's the system itself is like a complete interwoven, interconnected design where based on your vocabulary, your understanding, everything within you, you're only allowed to go into a certain place in this world. There's like a channel already put there for you to follow. And what you'll find is as you follow that, that's when you start to feel better. But what you don't realize maybe perhaps is that there's people in this world, the vast majority, whose channel, their path in life is to just be in a shitty situation that you wouldn't want to be in. And you could say, well, that's okay, that they can find their own happiness within it. But if you swapped places with them, you would never be able to find the happiness you have. And also, when you're honest with yourself, you realize too that mostly what you're calling your happiness right now is you just covering up a bunch of shit from your past. You're not actually happy. And if you're honest in those tiny moments where you get irritated, frustrated, you're not always constantly happy. It's a lie. It's an artifice that you're creating for yourself. It's a mental delusion. All feelings are mental delusions. They're not real. They're just a thing that you're creating for yourself. No one else can experience it. And if you think that, well, if I learn how to create it, I can just tell other people how to create it, you're just lying to yourself. Because if you took away all the physical things, in fact, if you took away your physical body, you wouldn't be able to do it at all. And if you think that, no, who I am is not my physical body, I am beyond that, then leave your physical body right now and come right back and just do it at will, like any moment. Just breathe, and then you can just go fly around and do whatever you want. Because if you're not able to do that, that would imply you're not actually you, you're your mind. Because your mind is actually trapped in your physical body. Your mind cannot leave your physical body. And I don't care how much astral traveling you've done, that's a delusion. That's a acid trip that you're in. Okay, it's not real. It's a video game you're playing. It's a virtual reality. Yeah, it can feel extremely real, but so can virtual reality. So can your dreams at night. Your dreams can feel very real. And if you're at the level of delusion where it's like, no, this is reality, it's more real than the physical reality, like you're lost. You're just totally lost. And there's nothing I'm probably going to say that's going to bring you back to reality. So what's going to have to happen is something very tragic is going to have to happen in your life for you to wake up and realize, wait a second, I was doing everything I thought was right and I was so happy in everything, and then everything collapsed. And then maybe at that point, hopefully for you, hopefully at that point, you'll be like, okay, I need to consider what's physically real because it's a consequence that I created. I need to get back to what's real, and then get back to the point of realizing only by creating systems that are best for everybody, where every child from birth has proper education, the best nutrition for them individually, the best shelter, clothing, access to technology, and so forth. Only by creating those circumstances would we then have a state where everybody would be like, this world we live in is pretty fucking cool. And to then delude yourself right now and be like, even without all of that, oh, but just nature is so amazing and all this stuff, then just go live in the fucking woods with nothing. You don't delude yourself and then pull other people into your delusion. Because until you realize that the only way to truly be happy is to create the world where the physical circumstances are making sure that each person has what they need. And then we can all look at, well, what's beyond that? Because we don't even have that sorted out yet. Like, how can you really claim that you're a happy person in this world where people are starving and like dying of things that are totally preventable, that are being created by the system that you're participating in which you're getting your happiness? And you can say, no, my happiness is totally internally generated. No, it's not. Nothing is internally generated within you, completely, totally generated internally. the language you speak, the thoughts you have, the beliefs, the emotions, the feelings, every single thing that's happening internally within you, which you would call your consciousness, was placed into you by this environment at some level, whether it was after you were born or before, through genetics and through the environment of when you were in your parents' womb, or the environment your great 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 grandparents were in, which they passed to you genetically and so forth. Every single thing that you experiencing internally and externally was at one time external, and it was placed in. And that's maybe the part that people are not realizing. And I'm not saying that there's no aspect of you that, in a sense, can transcend just what is here. But what I am suggesting is that aspect that would be you, that could, the way in which you would transcend is not because it's like physically separate and it's just in its other place. It's the point within you, which I would call your personal directive principle. It's the point within you that would allow you to be in the context of this reality and say, you know what? I'm here. What would be the best thing to do? And like, in the same sense that if I had to feed my child and I had the choice between feeding them and watching a TV show, I'd be like, I'm going to feed my child. In the same sense, you have to be like, am I going to focus on something that makes me feel good or do what's best? And there's a lot of children in this world that starve. There's a lot of children that die of things that are preventable. And there's a lot of people, even more than that are just generally depressed and unhappy because the environment they're in isn't offering anything for them to do or to give that would really require their full capacity. And there's so many people then, and also in this world, that have the potential to really make a difference by, again, going into the systems. For example, politics. Go and get into government, change the laws. So it says people have a right to these things, and here's how we're actually going to make sure it happens. And not getting caught up on communism or socialism or capitalism, like just looking at common sense and then rewriting all of it so that it makes sense. We could bring forth a new technology that would make sure everybody would be fed, but then there would have to be laws that would say this is the way that this right that everyone has is protected. Because it doesn't just happen. Like Amazon is essentially a technology that could ensure everybody in the world has what they need. It would obviously have to be built out a little bit further because it doesn't probably deliver first day delivery to fucking somewhere in Kenya. I don't know. Like, it would have to be built out more. But that's not even the starting point of it. The starting point of it only is if you can pay for it. So we're going to have to create new technologies around the money system, around the delivery of resources and so forth, and then write laws to ensure that the rights that these things are going to ensure are protected. But our laws currently only protect the major corporations' profits. So if it comes down to, does a person get fed or does this company get to make a profit, the laws are on the side of, no, you have to choose this one, right? That's how it works. So our laws are in such a way that it's like, that's the law. The laws, the things, the words that are in our reality that are structured, which say, it's like, imagine all the laws that exist, if you could look at them all in their totality, all together at every level, if you were to look at it, all those laws, the sum total of that says, you don't have a right to exist. You got to pay for the right to exist. That's what the laws say. And those laws dictate the distribution of physicality, physical resources that our bodies require. And then to have the audacity to say, fuck all that, it's just about feeling happy internally, loving yourself. If you really loved yourself, you would make that visible by going and changing the laws. And how are you going to do that if you don't have resources, if you don't have a network, if you don't have a group of people that you can actually stand with and go through all the fucking hard shit that's going to come at us as we do that? But the longer you sit and argue, no, I mean, I'm feeling good and I give here and there and I'm a nice person generally, I make everyone feel comfortable and all that. That's not changing anything. There's no reward for being a good person in this world. And ultimately, that's why you're doing it. You're just thinking if you're just a good person, you can manipulate reality into giving you a reward. It's not coming. You can be the best person on earth and still something tragic can happen to you. And what you'll find is those good people, that's what happens a lot in your life, isn't it? A lot of shitty stuff. But it's like you using that as some reverse superhero thing within yourself of like, oh, but I'm such a good person. And even though all these bad things, I mean, I'm so nice and I'm so giving and all this stuff. It's like, no, none of that matters. You don't get a reward for that. There is no thing that's going to be like, oh, good job. You win. You're going to get heaven now. No, there's just this world, this reality, the reality of children suffering and dying and people suffering and dying. People, the amount of people who commit suicide in this world is insane. Just because there's nothing really here where we can actually, there's nothing to love. Why would you love yourself if you are contributing to a reality, not by how you feel, but regardless of how you feel, your actual actions are within a system that's contributing and causing children to suffer and die at crazy, insane amounts. And yet you're focused on how you feel. It's not acceptable. That doesn't mean we're not going to go through a lot of stuff where we feel really bad, we feel really shitty, we feel really challenged, it feels really difficult. But it's the starting point of why you're doing it. And there will be times where you feel amazing. Like I feel great from time to time. I feel not so great from time to time. But it doesn't change my starting point. And if it does, then it's like, wait, got to start over. Because sometimes you get slapped in the face and you're like, oh, I was still accepting something. You just didn't realize it. Something that wasn't best. So the thing is, it's not possible to do it on your own. And this idea that you could just feel happy, and if everyone just felt happy and loved yourself, it's actually thinking that you're separate from reality. It actually is. You may try to justify it, say, no, I'm actually, there is no separation and all this stuff, but that's just all ideas you have in your head. It's not real. Because yes, there is no separation, but that's why you can't individually just feel happy, because you're embedded in a reality where what you do and what you allow to exist, even if you don't participate in it, what you allowing to exist affects everyone else. It does affect you. It affects you because you're a part of this reality. The only way you can deny that is by to create a mental delusional bubble, which you call yourself. That is self-interest. It's when you're interested just in what's going on within you only. You're not looking really at what else is going on. And there is nothing else that's going to explain this unless you go into the Destiny material, desteni.org. Just go look into it. Look at the principles. Watch all the videos. Watch the history of mankind. Go into all that stuff, because it's going to give you a lot of context, and it's going to help you break down a lot of this. To me, it's like obvious stuff. And it's not because I'm so smart. It's just because when you're honest with yourself about it, it becomes obvious. Like, oh, the pursuit of happiness is obviously bullshit. And I've worked with so many people in this to see when they make that shift and they're like willing to be honest with themselves, and they're like, oh yeah, it's so obvious. Everyone's just participating in this delusion. You know, as much as you might see all these people wearing masks or any of these things you see people participating in, where it's like you're like, these people are so brainwashed. The ultimate brainwashing is this idea that you can just create happiness for yourself without any regard to physical reality, and realizing that a system is required that to everyone have what they need. Because for you to accept that system and be a part of creating it is giving as you'd like to receive. But you can want to receive something that's not best. So what are you going to get in return? What are you giving? You could just give a bunch of mental delusional bullshit because you're just hoping, well, I'll get some kind of delusional bullshit, which is my happiness. That none of that is real. The best thing to focus on is creating a system. And that, when I say create a system, you might think, I don't know what all that is. Like, yeah, you're not going to understand that right away. It's going to require some studying to figure all that out and to understand it. And if you talk to me directly, or anyone in our group, join Self Perfected on Facebook, become a part of Destiny, Technotutor, all these things, Jen, right? But then even within Jen, you're going to have to then look at these other points. Then you'll be supported to understand how all these points work. Like, it's not about you need to know how to do it all in advance, but you have to start questioning these points within yourself, which is like, no, I don't like, it's like so funny to have access to something like Jinn and the Jinn training, and then to think, and to still believe it's all just about happiness. And you're going to find all the little points in the training to try to justify, oh, but that's what it says. No, it doesn't say that. You just can't process information. Like, you literally can't read. You don't even realize it. Your reading level is probably third grade. You don't realize it. You're not understanding what's being said. Because if you simply focus on what makes you happy, everyone's already doing that. You're just like everybody else. You're not any different. You're literally just, the elite are looking at you like, got another sucker. That's how they look at it. So the pursuit of happiness is actually an illusion, because the starting point of pursuing something is that you don't have it. So if you were happy, though, if you're like, oh, okay, well, no, I mean, I am happy. I'm just happy inherently. Then why wouldn't you just do what's best now? What are you waiting for? And if you're justifying, well, when I'm happy, I just automatically do what's best. But I can show you demonstrably what you're doing is not best, because you're not participating in creating a system that gives everybody what they need, so that they can at least have a base level of fucking dignity in this world. Because you don't have to face it every day, because you're in this little bubble where it's just your feelings, just how you feel. And you take the 1% of the time you feel good, or the less than 1%, and you amplify that and act like that's your existence, when really you feel shitty most of the time, if you're honest with yourself, which, I don't know, that's going to be up to you. That's all I have to say.